Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of Jean and her family, we welcome you here this afternoon to pay our respect and to say farewell to Wayne. We as a community have gathered to farewell our friend, a colleague, a boss, a mentor, a grandfather, brother, father and husband. Wayne spent 20 great years here in Cairns. It's our great community that is here today to say farewell, to comfort each other and to hear about Wayne's world that you might not know about. The many things we do know about Wayne: his dry, witty humour, his fine taste of New Zealand wine, his generosity to many support groups, his support to tourism in far north Queensland, his loyalty to family and friends, and of course his beloved New Zealand, of which he always spoke about and reminded us all of his beloved All Blacks, though I don't recall Wayne ever speaking about the New Zealand cricket team. Yes, we let a Kiwi into our lives, our community, and he let us know it on many occasions. He might actually have been saying to himself right now, just look at the crowd of Aussies this Kiwi can pull. A slide presentation of Wayne's life has been produced by his children, in which they wish to share with you this afternoon. We're also to hear from Wayne's family, his friends and those most close to Wayne in the many roles he undertook during his life here in Cairns. And before I ask Jean and the family to come up, I encourage you all to clap, cheer, yell, scream, cry, do whatever you like after each person has spoken. It's what we do in Cairns. So ladies and gentlemen, may I ask Jean, Andrea, Chris and Tani to the podium to say a few words, please.
God, those lights are bright. Thank you all for being here today to help us to celebrate Wayne's life, especially those who've travelled from interstate and from overseas, I understand. He wanted this to be a happy day with stories and laughter. Not sure, but I think there'll be a few tears along the way as well. Wayne's nature was as a giver, not a taker, and he demonstrated this trait all through his adult life. He was my best friend, my husband, my king. Wayne King, somebody called him once. He was loving, generous and dependable. He ironed his own shirts. He hung out the washing. He helped with the cleaning and he did the gardening. I hated the gardening. Anybody gardener out there that can help me out with the garden? What else could a girl ask for? I once described a pyramid as representing our family. Wayne was the base, our support, unselfishly holding us all together. The four sides representing Andrea, Chris, Tani and me. We relied on him to keep us as one, all interconnected, yet separate, all looking out in different directions, but all with the same common base, him. His base was several stories high, mind you, and his many interests and work demands often meant that we took second place. He was mindful never to bring his work home, and our study was where he spent most of his time with his other outside interests. We were a partnership, though, supporting each other in all things we did. 50-50, he used to say when we were going out. I'll drive there and you can drive home. The time that we did share was precious and always fun. This interpretation of us, the pyramid, has never faltered over the years, not until the 2nd of February this year, when his base, his foundations, were shaken like those in a massive earthquake, never to be restored. So close were we as a family, now of 11, that in these last few months we have all been here together, supporting each other and Wayne. Regardless of how he might have been feeling, Wayne's thoughts were always to look at the positive, to make us smile and laugh. Through all of this, he never lost his wicked sense of humour that we all love about him. I'm sure that that humour came from his love of the goons. Ying Tong song, I think, was his favourite. During our early years together, I often recall falling asleep listening to the voices of Spike Milligan, Peter Sellers and Harry Seacombe, and Wayne's priceless laughter. I remember in Townsville Hospital, after his biopsy, the doctor came in all very serious to give us the results. As it was not good news, she had a young intern with her, probably, Wayne assumed, learning how to deliver bad news. Wayne asked if they had any idea what caused this glioblastoma. The doctor said no, they had no idea. And he turned to me and he said, maybe it was all that charcoal from your cooking for all these years. I didn't think I was that bad a cook. Anyway, the poor young intern couldn't help herself, and she tried in vain to stifle the laughter. She quickly excused herself, escaping through the curtains. I don't think the other doctor quite saw the funny side. What she, though, did see, as well as many of the other medical professionals that we came in contact with over the next 4 months, was Wayne's ability to bring the humour in at every opportunity. He didn't show any anger. He didn't have an angry bone in his body. To our dear and special friends, also the doctors and nurses, and all of you who have helped us through this time, there's too many to name, but you know who you are. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. For all the beautiful messages, the cards and the flowers, we really appreciate your thoughts. Thanks also to the digital and social media age, which Wayne had a pretty good grasp of until the last few weeks. We were able to share Wayne's journey with all of our very many friends and colleagues. If there was one highlight at all over the last 20-something weeks, it was that Wayne was able to see, hear and read what you all thought of him. He was surprised, delighted, humbled and amazed. He never saw himself as we saw him. A wonderful, inspirational man, a good friend, a genuinely good bloke, and so revered and highly respected. It was a joy to see his reactions, and we will treasure that always. At times I was grateful for the social media phenomena, as it left me free to concentrate on caring for him. At other times I felt that his struggle was no longer a private one, but a very public one. For this reason, we felt that it was important that we as a family got to say our private farewells at his funeral service last Wednesday. He's now resting in a lovely new western extension to the Martin Street Cemetery. I was there this morning having a bit of a chat with him, and it was beautiful there. It's really going to be a lovely part of the cemetery, so I hope he's happy to be there. Well, I know he's not happy to be there, but you know what I mean. Now, if they can hold it together, the kids are going to just share a few special memories of their dad.
God, they are bright. Hello. For those of the few of you out there that we haven't had the pleasure to meet, I'm Tani, this is Andy and Chris. So many memories, stories, anecdotes and jokes come to mind when we think about Dad. It was hard to choose only a few to share with you today. I could easily stand up here and talk about our amazing dad all day. And anyone that knows me knows I can talk your ears off, so I'll try and keep this brief. Growing up, we didn't get to see too much of Dad, probably because he was busy hanging out with a lot of you and getting up to all kinds of mischief. But the time we did spend together was special. Dad always kept us entertained, and although he worked hard and for long hours, we always knew he was doing it for a good reason. None of us would have the life we have today if it wasn't for the hard yards at him putting in the hard yards at the office and in the community. And yet he still found the time to take us on amazing holidays and weekend trips and to teach us valuable lessons, good manners and morals, and to always, always correct our grammar. Chris, Andy and me, Chris, Andy and I. And of course, he was always there to give us guidance and support if we were ever stuck emotionally, professionally, financially, and in all other aspects of our lives. One of my fondest memories of Dad was one of his best tricks, his ability to always cheer us up when we were sad, upset, or just throwing a tantrum. All he had to do was look at us with that big goofy grin and say, smile, just smile, just smile. Worked every time because I couldn't look at that face and not laugh. Dad was always good at finding the positive side of everything. He never focused on the negatives. He always knew how to lighten the situation and make everybody else feel better and more relaxed. Even today, he wanted us all to smile, to laugh, and to remember the good times, not the bad. And that's pretty easy to do when you're talking about him.
I was lucky enough to see the three sides of Dad: the work side, the father side, and the mate side. Working with Dad at Avis allowed me to experience what it meant to be his employee, as he was always professional and never let the fact that I was his son interfere with his job. As a dad, he always was a strong, stable father figure, and since I became a father myself, I can appreciate everything he did and hope I'll be as good a dad to my children. Since Ashton was born, Dad has been more of a mate to me than a dad. Spending time with him while doing work around the house, I could see the side of him that all his mates got to see. The fun, funny, and sometimes, well, most of the time, the crude side. But no matter what side of Dad you saw, there was definitely a common theme. Whether he was parenting, working, or playing, he always had a huge smile on his face and would always be cracking jokes. Tani mentioned earlier that Dad was always teaching us things. We were always learning life lessons from him. And in the last few months, we actually learnt so much about Dad himself. It wasn't until he was sick that we learnt about all the roles he played in the community, about the jobs he had when he was younger, and just how well known and adored he was by all the people in his life. We've always known he was awesome, but we never knew how that he had made such an impact on everyone else he met. And we're all so proud of that. One of the biggest lessons we learnt during the past 4 months was just how strong Mum is. She stepped up in a way none of us could have imagined and became the pillar of strength. She took over and became the base of our pyramid and held us all up on her shoulders. And although Dad was always giving her a hard time and calling her a bossy bitch, there was always so much love there. We all know Dad was never a guy to say anything vindictively, and Mum gave just as good as she got. Dad himself told us that he was so proud of her, and that had the situation been reversed, he didn't think he would have been strong enough to deal with it. But he said, don't tell Mum that, he doesn't want her getting a big head. But we all know he would have done the same for us. I'd like to say a special thanks to Brian Ernst for helping realise one of Dad's dreams of owning a classic car. The 54 FJ Holden has now been passed on to me and will one day be passed on to Ashton. Dad had always wanted a classic car to cherish and pass on. Although he wanted a HT Monaro, which was unfortunately a little hard to find, he loved the FJ. And one of the highlights of my life will be the day we took Dad down to the garage to see it for the first time. That is one of the many memories I will cherish forever. Thank you.
One of our favourite memories spent as a family since this all started was back in April, shortly after Dad's surgery. We were all sitting in the media room at Mum and Dad's house watching Dad's new smart TV. Dad accidentally hit the button to activate voice command. Trying to correct this, he spoke into the remote and politely asked to close guide. A woman's voice replied, "I'm sorry, I don't recognise that command." Dad repeated, "Close guide." Again, a woman's voice replied, "I'm sorry, I don't recognise that command." In a moment of frustration, Dad muttered, "Stupid bitch." To which the woman politely replied, "Verbal abuse harms both psychologically and emotionally." So who'd have thought Samsung sells bossy bitches, and Dad had just paid to have yet another one in the house. I would now like to read a little poem that we found that seems very fitting for Dad. Dad, so many images come to mind whenever I speak your name. It seems without you in my life, things will never be the same. Dad, some days I hear your voice and turn to see your face, yet in my turning it seems your presence has been erased. What happened to those lazy days when I was just a child, when my life was mirrored in you, in your love and in your smile? What happened to all those times when I always looked to you? No matter what happened in my life, you could make my grey skies blue. Dad, who will I turn to for answers? Who will come to my defence? Who will be there to hold me close when life does not make sense? Please always know I love you and no one can take your place. Years may come and go, but your memory will never be erased. We would like to add our thanks to mums, to thank everybody who supported us this year. There are too many to name and we don't even know some of your names, but you know who you are and thank you.
May I ask Stephen Ollie, who's right behind me, to the podium, please.
Watch your back, JR. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been very honoured today to have been asked by the family to deliver the eulogy, which is a version of what Wayne's brother Stephen gave at Wayne's burial last week. But just before I start, I'd like to perhaps draw your attention to the program you have in front of you and open it up. In the middle there's a picture of Wayne at the Wanaka golf course. And Wayne was a great mate to a lot of us, not always. We'd been on a tour, we decided we had a bit of spare time to go and play golf at Wanaka. So we turned up at the golf course, we went into the pro shop and I said to the young chap behind the desk, "G'day." And he said, "You'll be an Aussie then?" And I went, "Yeah, why?" And he said, "You're going to have to pay extra." It's just like that. And I said, "Hang on, my mate's a Kiwi." And I turned around and Wayne's standing straight-faced behind me. I've never seen him before in my life. So he was a good mate sometimes. Now I'm about to tell you about the first 2/3 of Wayne's life, which not many of you will know about. I've learned a few things, and before the family arrived here in Cairns, and it's quite interesting reading. I might ask if we're going to run a slideshow as well. To some of these pictures will fit in with what we're going to talk about. Wayne Robert Lapthorne was born on the 23rd of September in 1952 at Victoria Hospital in Invercargill, New Zealand. Wayne was the second of 3 sons born to Robert and Joyce Lapthorne. His older brother Lloyd, born in January 1951, died at the age of 6 weeks, and his younger brother Stephen was born in 1955. He grew up in Invercargill with only 2 childhood homes, Leach Street and Fox Street, and lived at home until the age of 21. Wayne attended middle primary school from 1957, just around the corner from the family home in Leach Street, and attended the Central Methodist Church, which was also just around the corner. Invercargill's not a very big town if you've been there. Wayne went to the Rosedale Intermediate School from 1964 and played soccer for the Thistle Soccer Club during this time. Religion, although important to his parents, was more for convenience and social etiquette than following a true faith. As Joyce was a Catholic and Bob being Church of England, we're not quite sure why Wayne was Presbyterian and Steve was a Methodist. So Wayne always reckoned that as a family they had all the bases covered. Interests during these early years included Cubs, Scouts and Venturers at St Paul's, and Wayne enjoyed the outdoors and camping and attended 2 World Jamborees. As an older venturer, he revealed that much of their time was spent drinking and finding ways to get rid of the evidence. And Jean recalls that when the old St Paul's Hall, where the scout troop met, was demolished, Wayne was most concerned that the evidence may be discovered and linked back to him. His years at Southland Boys High School were busy ones from 66 to 71, but it appears not for schoolwork. His personal report and leaving certificate shows average to below average grades, a very long list of extracurricular activities. These included basketball, gymnastics, photography club, .22 shooting and athletics, as well as being a physics laboratory assistant, apparently. He was described, and this is from his report, a pleasant young man, rather inconsistent in academic performance, perhaps because of definitely channelled interests. While at high school, he was also introduced to the Air Training Corps by one of his teachers, and this turned out to be a huge part in his life and shaped his character and outlook. During the school holidays, Wayne worked for his cousin at the local undertakers, erecting and repairing headstones. And this also led to a job laying concrete curbing around Southland, and these skills turned out to be invaluable in years to come. In 1972, Wayne started work for the Automobile Association in New Zealand, or the AA, which is New Zealand's equivalent of the RACQ. He was employed as a general clerk, responsible for the operation of association's insurance agency and to arrange members' touring requirements. Diversification of services saw him being responsible for the introduction of an international travel section, and his ability in the travel field showed way back then, with spectacular increases in annual turnover, as described in his letter of reference. It was as a travel agent that he got experience on overseas travel for Mills, and a highlight for him was going to China in 1978 when their borders had just been opened to Westerners. He remembers being signalled out for attention back then because of his bright blue eyes. Wayne married his first wife, Sonia Templar, in 1974, and their marriage only lasting 4 years till 1978. After their separation, he continued his career at the AA, and it was in his role as a travel agent that he met Jean in October 1978. Many have heard this story before, but this meeting proved that love at first sight does happen. Wayne left his job, sold his house, and joined Jean and her friend Karen on a trip to the United States. And after 5 months of travelling, Jean and Wayne made their way back to Sydney, where they had planned, as many Kiwis do, to work in Oz. But getting jobs proved harder than they expected. Running low on funds and feeling a little homesick, they decided to return to New Zealand. The day before they were due to leave, Wayne was offered a job for Hertz in their truck rental division. The timing was terrible as the money was all gone, the lease was up, so he turned the offer down and they returned to New Zealand. Life could have been very different if not for that choice made back then. In July 1979, while waiting in the immigration line at Christchurch Airport, upon returning to New Zealand, he was offered a job as a travel agent back in Invercargill. Then the following day, while collecting a car to reposition to Invercargill from Avis, he was offered and interviewed for the Avis manager's job in Invercargill. This job he accepted as it had a car provided, and the rest, they say, is history. He would have celebrated 35 years with Avis this coming August. Wayne resumed his role with the Cadet Forces with No. 12 Squadron in Invercargill. He was very committed and had previously won numerous awards and had been lucky enough to travel overseas on exchange trips with the New Zealand Air Force to the USA and Singapore. Never since he's reminded travelling economy with airlines, because he always said it was way better than being in the back of a Hercules. Wayne advanced to be squadron leader of No. 12 Squadron in Invercargill, something he was very proud of. In 1982, he was commander when the squadron was judged the best squadron in New Zealand. In 1983, he was nominated to be the Chief of Air Staff's representative as Air Force Relations Officer in Invercargill, and he served diligently, as you would expect. From 1979 till 1987, Wayne and Jean made their home in Invercargill, renting Jean's late grandparents' home, and after their wedding in 1981, they purchased that home and did some major restorations. Wayne could put his hand to anything, and while converting the internal garage to a bedroom, Wayne asked his brother Steve to help him pour some concrete for the floor. Steve didn't think things looked quite kosher, so he asked if he had a permit. I have Jean's permission, Wayne said. As commissioned officer in the Reserve Air Force, Wayne was entitled to join the Southland Officers Club, and as you would all expect, and there appears to be a common theme appearing here, he worked his way through all the committee positions and became president of the club. Many fun nights were had there, playing snooker and drinking into the wee hours. Jean often had to ring around 2 o'clock to ask if he needed a lift home. Often he was followed home by the local senior traffic inspector, also a club member, just to make sure he got home in one piece. While president of the Officers Club, he had the enviable task of hosting a dinner reception for the then Governor of New Zealand, Sir David Beattie. A large marquee was erected in the gravel car park of the club rooms, and his procurement expertise started to show way back then. An enormous roll of carpet, which had been removed from a local bank during renovations, was acquired and used to carpet the marquee. This was later to be laid in Wayne and Jean's home. Family meant the world to Wayne, and I'm sure he'd be very proud of his 3 children and his wife today. They did a great job up here. Andrew was born in 1983 and Christopher in 1985. Then in 1987, Wayne was offered the role of Christchurch Airport Manager for Avis, and the hard decision to leave his hometown was made. Jean was expecting Tani at the time, and after the move, she was born in Rangiora north of Christchurch in March 1988. The home in Kaiapoi was 15 minutes north of the Christchurch Airport and was just across the road from a gin distillery. Again, this house was renovated by Wayne with more concreting that he was good at, and his love of gardening grew. They had the most amazing roses lining the driveway, yellow being his favourite. 4 enjoyable years there, and some very close friendships were forged. And many of you have probably heard the Pictionary stories, the Kindy Committee stories, and that he was duly elected to the Board of Trustees for the Kaiapoi Borough School. What was it with the committees? He couldn't help himself. Promotion within Avis to Estate Manager South Australia again saw them on the move, and this time to Australia. A massive decision with 3 children aged 8, 6 and 3. Adelaide was home from 1991 until 1995. But South Australia was a fairly easy transition for these Kiwis, and the accent wasn't that different. Wayne learnt very quickly that the Australian way of doing business relationships, and his introduction to business networking was at the President's lunches at the Adelaide Crows AFL games, thanks to the host Toyota. It was a difficult decision to leave Adelaide as Wayne was beginning to feel he could match it with the rest of them without having the right school tie. The children were comfortable and doing well in school, and Jean was building on her Avon business, but move they did, and almost 20 years on it was to be the best move of their lives. Arriving in Cairns as North Queensland State Manager for Avis in January 1995, Wayne had left Jean and the children in a house in Adelaide. The house didn't sell at that stage. They arrived in May, and the Adelaide house finally sold in August. They stayed at Coral Sands Resort in Trinity Beach while waiting for furniture, and met Peter and Jackie Cryan, who were the managers. And it was probably Peter who introduced him to Wayne to Skoll, or at least to some Skoll members. The family rented a house at Coral Beach and then built a new home in Melissa Close in 1997. They sold that in 2004, moved to Brinsmead while building their current home in Moorabool, and have been there ever since, which is the longest they've been in any house in their married life. Wayne worked very hard to build the Avis business here in North Queensland, which George will attest to shortly, and in doing so made many friends in that industry. He joined Rotary as another outlet to grow the business outside the tourism industry and to satisfy his need to serve the community, and Richard will tell us about that as well. Wayne joined Skoll as a networking framework for Avis, which is when many of us first met him. Lots of very special friendships have forged from this association, and we'll hear a little bit more about that shortly from Peter. In 2010, Wayne was elected to the Board of Tourism Tropical North Queensland and was re-elected in 2012 for a further term, and Steve will outline his achievements with TTNQ. Wayne has touched many people in this region since moving his family here almost 20 years ago, and all of you in this room here today are a testament to that. His memory will live on through his family and his friends, and I personally have been honoured to know Wayne and count on him as a friend. We've shared many experiences in our travels around the world, and our families have become very close, so we'll miss him as we miss family. A good family man, a good worker, an asset to all parts of the industry and community, and most of all, a good mate. He will be missed.
Jean, we must say sorry to you for allowing 2 people into Wayne's garden recently with Stephen Ollie and Max Shepherd with a machete and a whippersnipper. It will never happen again. We're so sorry. May I ask George Pruse to the podium, please.
I had the pleasure of working with Wayne for the past 15 years, and as not just a colleague, but as a friend. On behalf of the greater Avis Budget family across Australia and New Zealand, who are all represented here today, I'd like to thank Jean, Chris, Andrea and Tani for allowing us to share Wayne for the past 35 years, and most especially for the last nearly 20 years here in Cairns. Wayne was not just a dedicated leader within our organisation. He was a terrific mentor to so many of his team, as well as a passionate ambassador of our brands and also North Queensland. Wayne also possessed a unique sense of humour and wit that was always delivered at just the right moment. He was always generous with his time across a myriad of causes that benefited the greater community, and his passion will be deeply missed. We'll all miss Wayne in our own special way, and I ask all of you to join me now in acknowledging a great human being. Thank you.
Thank you, George. May I ask Stephen Gregg to the podium, please?
It's with mixed feelings that I speak today. On one hand, I feel a sense of sadness on losing such a good friend and colleague as Wayne far too soon. But on the other, there's a feeling of gratitude for having had the chance to get to know such a fine person as Wayne. And whilst I speak of loss, it can in no way compare to that of Jean and her family, and I hope today's service can help in the times ahead. On behalf of my fellow directors of Tourism Tropical North Queensland, and more broadly our industry colleagues, we wish to acknowledge the considerable role Wayne has played in the development of our industry. Wayne contributed greatly to the deliberations of the board with his objective and well-reasoned counsel. And having listened to Stephen and Wayne's eulogy and his background, I'm just sort of reinforcing just about everything you've heard in terms of Wayne's wit. I've got his razor-sharp wit. He was always available to diffuse tense discussions, and one of his great qualities, which I'm sure all of you would appreciate, he was always to put the chair in his place when he took himself too seriously. I can recall quite aside from Wayne to a fellow director who had commented to him after one of his quick-witted disarming comments to the chair that he'd been a little harsh, and Wayne responded, "Well, who's going to tell him if I don't?" Touche, Wayne. But in any discussions about Wayne's fine qualities, the most frequent description of him was that he was a gentleman. He was really one of nature's gentlemen, and I think that's when his giving nature, and with his family and friends have talked about that, shone through when it came to his director's responsibilities, and he was always available to take on extra duties on various committees and industry forums. I can recall occasions when a volunteer was required from the board, and we would look around and all the eyes would avert when the volunteer is called for, which is the first thing you do if you're smart about these committees. But it was always Wayne's who would always catch my eye and grin, and he'd say, "Well, it looks like it's me." And if having heard from all the committees and the services he filled on, obviously it's a quality that was just ingrained in him, and he was always there for everyone. He was a long-standing member of our Finance and Audit Committee, and he volunteered on Palm Cove members' committees and LTO committees. And as I say, if there was a gap, Wayne always found time to fill it, which is greatly appreciated by the board, and I'm sure the people who he's helped with those committees. The other thing that I should mention, and George has touched on it, was the commitment to the greater tourism industry through his role at Avis. He told me in various discussions that he understood that the prosperity of his company depended on the efforts of the many accommodation, attractions and tour operators, and he sought to make his contribution to complement their efforts. In that way, he was always there to support industry initiatives with discounted and FOC vehicles for mills, interstate road shows, help with our own vehicles in TTNQ. And I'm told, more importantly by some people, that he was able to organise vehicles for inspections of resort golf courses across Australia by the Cairns industry leaders to gain competitive advantage in industry intelligence. And knowing the people that I'm talking about, they needed that, let me tell you. But seriously, and I should just digress, I ran into Mike and Jane Burgess at Sunshine Beach, Jean, and he asked to pass on his deepest respects to your family. But and it was just amazing, because I said I was coming up, and the first thing he said, he was just, what a gentleman, what an incredible gentleman, too soon. But that's the first thing that comes to mind, and I think everyone in the room would share that sentiment. But the thing that made me grin the most was, and he said, you know the other thing about him? He was really good about dents and scrapes when you return the car. So, George, I'm sorry about that, but no, really, and it was and it was that spirit, I think, that Wayne had, that I think we can all learn something from, and I think it's a lesson for us all. It's the spirit that created the great North Queensland tourism industry, and that interconnectedness and that ability for people to work together. I think Wayne just epitomised that, and I think we're all the richer for that. At our last board meeting, the board's appreciation of Wayne's commitment and dedication was recorded for posterity in the minutes, and I'm grateful we were able to write and convey this to Wayne before his passing. He leaves big shoes to be filled at the boardroom table. To Jean and your family, we extend our sincere condolences and trust that the memories of Wayne's well-lived life will sustain you always.
Thank you, Stephen. Greg, may I welcome to the podium the patron of travel swingers, Peter Blackburn.
Good afternoon, everybody. You may ask why I'm up here, and because Wayne was inducted into SCOL in 1997, which was the year I was president, so I've been here to represent the SCOL Club of Cairns. Wayne was inducted at the Kuranda Rainforest Station in a ceremony conducted by the then world president Ian McCubbin from the UK, and Ian was from British Rail and a fellow train buff of mine, so it was good to catch up with him. Wayne was inducted in a group consisting of James Tong, Michael Turner, Andrew Steele, Peter Miller and Stephen Ollie, and Wayne was certainly the pick of that bunch. So you might have seen a photo up there earlier on. We're all looking a bit younger then. He rose through the ranks as Treasurer, Secretary, Vice President and was elected President in 2001. There was some conjecture from the committee when he was first nominated for Treasurer, as he was a Kiwi. However, he had a laptop and knew about spreadsheets back in the days when anyone else did, and he actually knew how to use them. So this got him across the line and he never looked back. To summarise Wayne's year as President, it seemed to be a year of exceptional lunches, and with a number of lunches being preceded by golf. Tough life as a SCOL President. At the June meeting, the members were joined by members from the New Guinea Club and visitors from the Queenstown Club in New Zealand. The PNG members provided a raffle of the day, airfares to PNG and accommodation in PNG, with the proviso that the proceeds were put on the bar at the end of the meeting. Rumour has it that the lobby bar at the Cairns International had a record-breaking day. However, the year was not without its dramas. The September meeting was perhaps out of sorts with the rest of the year. Held at the Kuranda Trading Post, this meeting was held 3 days after September the 11th tragedy and a day prior to Ansett Airlines going into administration. Whoever will forget that day. In October, Wayne and Jean attended the SCOL World Congress in Puerto Rico. Numbers attending this Congress were well down due to September 11 events. However, Cairns was well represented with a total of 9 members, plus their partners, attending. A little R&R was taken after the World Congress, and 5 members, plus their wives, went on a 6-day Caribbean cruise. And hence we have the Caribbean Crusaders. And a strong friendship has been established, and it still exists to this day. In 2002, the World Congress was held in Cairns. With Wayne's financial and computer skills, he was appointed Treasurer for the event. Charlie Woodward described Wayne as the best treasurer ever, as the Congress came in on budget and actually made a profit. That's something that didn't always happen with SCOL. Wayne and Jean also attended SCOL World Congresses in Turkey in 2007 and in New York in 2013. Both were memorable for different reasons. Turkey for the bus, with the Cairns delegates being renowned for its drinking prowess, and New York, which was actually on a cruise ship to Canada for the extra activities which Wayne professionally organised. Wayne was a true colleague. As he did in all respects of his life, he gave to his fellow Skol members friendship, honesty and respect. Wayne was very proud to be a member, committee member and president of the Skol Club of Cairns. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And may I ask to the podium Richard Ireland, please.
Good afternoon. I've been called on to say a few words this afternoon on behalf of the Rotary Club of Cairns. Wayne was invited to join Rotary and inducted into our club on the 31st of December 2000 by myself as club president that year. I'd known Wayne since he came to Cairns with Avis, and I had no doubt that he'd make a great Rotarian. Wayne committed himself to Rotary's four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? He is also committed to Rotary's ideal, as you all know, service above self. In these few minutes, I invite you to remember a Rotarian, a past president, a past secretary, and a club director of many years' service, but above all, a friend whose sense of humour and wit outshone most events. I sent a note to a few of the club members asking for help with some dates and so on, and I remarked, tough gig, stand-up's not my forte. That came to mind because invariably after I stood up to address our club, Wayne would quip, stand up, Richard. And as you can see, it's not helping much today either. He was a master of one-liners. When Wayne was running the Rotary store one year at the Cairns show, I arrived to be greeted by him with my job for the day, short order cook. And then it started. Everyone can imagine how the day went. Most days were like that. Rotary is like a giant web in terms of putting you in contact with just about anyone through someone that knows someone that knows someone. The 6 degrees of separation in Rotary is more like 4. Wayne was a great example of working within that web, using his connections through many different organisations to benefit others. Too often, networking is used for personal gain. Wayne modelled how it could be done to benefit his community. One of our members recalled that you can ask Wayne to help out at virtually any Rotary event and get a positive response with all the resources that he could muster. People from Avis and Budget should stop listening right now, George. It's agreed that one event that we think made Wayne cringe was the seniors' picnics that we ran, where we used to get a number of minibuses from Wayne, anything up to 10, to pick up and drop off seniors. This was always an interesting few hours of terror for Wayne. He knew there'd be some problem during the period the vehicles were away, just not sure how that problem would manifest itself on the day. We expect that Wayne had to suspend one or two of the four-way tests for Rotary on the Monday following to fill out the paperwork. But we know the respect for Wayne in Rotary was certainly replicated in his workplace, and these transgressions wouldn't have been a problem. A member also recalled one of the many good things about travelling with Wayne to a Rotary conference was that you always got a good quality hire car, full of perpetual fuel and clean. It also generally meant Wayne was the signatory for the vehicle, which meant he was the designated driver for the whole trip. Hence, it was convenient to have a drink both for him and for yourself. Our fellow says he never heard Wayne complain about this. Mostly he pretended not to listen anyway. Such was our indulgence in Wayne's diplomacy. Wayne was president of our club in its 80th year, 2009-2010. He then became club secretary in 2011-2012 and followed on as club service director in 2013-14. Wayne also held a number of other board positions in the lead up to becoming president and committee roles for district conferences in his years of service. Wayne participated in what seemed like every activity in the club. He was rarely missing. Club dinners, board meetings, committees, community service events, and almost every occasion was accompanied by a good quality red wine. His year as president showcased his strength and commitment to Rotary. That year flew with Wayne in the driver's seat. Wayne's own list in no particular order of the things we did in his year stands testament to this. There wasn't just significant donations shared between Couch, Destiny Rescue, the Rotary Foundation, Rotary's Polio Plus campaign, the water supply project in Timor-Leste, Relay for Life and more. There were also a myriad of other projects, such as, just to name a few, care packs for the hospital, Rotary Young Driver Awareness Program, the Endeavour Foundation Vocational Awards, and our club's 80th birthday celebrations. That's about a third of the list. We also negotiated to acquire about 40 Australia Post motorbikes for free from the Postie Bike Challenge. The challenge ran from Cooktown and back, to Cooktown and back. Then we flogged them off for $21,000. In his end-of-year address, he thanked and congratulated all the members for what they did. And as he said, the number of times we all get asked to do something and it gets done is remarkable. But as we all know, not as remarkable as the man. 2 years after his year as president, Wayne was awarded Rotary's highest honour, being made a Paul Harris Fellow, presented on 25th February 2012 by fellow Rotarian and friend Bob McGill, who was club president in that year. Also in 2012, before his 60th birthday, Wayne started cycling and took part in the Banish the Black Dog Rotary charity bike ride in support of mental health from Townsville to Ware and back. He used a borrowed bicycle from Bob McGill with internal gears and a very uncomfortable seat bob. Wayne emailed all his friends and raised over $5,000 for Australian Rotary Health. Most other participants raised about $500. At our club's recent changeover dinner on the 28th of July, our outgoing president, Gail Seymour, announced a new award within the club. It is the Rotary Club of Cairns Wayne Lapthorne Memorial Shield, Rotarian of the Year. It's to be presented to a member of the club who has made an outstanding contribution and commitment to service above self. Wayne is the inaugural winner of this award in acknowledgement of his valuable contribution and the esteem, and the esteem with which he's been held. As I've previously expressed, Wayne was one of those few people that could be truly described as one of life's true gentlemen. He was very well respected in business, a great friend, a committed volunteer and a Rotarian, and above all, a wonderful husband, father and grandfather to his family. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. May I ask to the podium Mr. Bob McGill, please. And we've run out of tissues, Bob, so you could be in trouble up here.
Thanks, John. I don't know about the tissues, but people might need eye shades from the reflection off my head here. Good afternoon, friends, sculligs, Rotarians, ladies and gentlemen. As John's indicated, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bob McGill, and the hat, although I don't have one on, that I wear here today is that of Deputy Chair and Director of Couch, Committee for the Oncology Unit, Cairns Hospital. Wayne and Jean have graciously and very kindly nominated Couch to be the recipient of any donations you might offer today in lieu of flowers. I know most of you are locals and therefore would need no introduction to Couch, but as a brief to visitors and to keep Couch foremost in your thoughts, I'm here to give an update. Couch is an action group set up as a result of a public meeting on the 4th of September 2006. It was rallied by the plea of Liz Plummer, a friend to many of us, who was at the time undergoing cancer treatment, and via the Cairns Post newspaper highlighted to the Cairns community the absence of radiation oncology services in Cairns. Liz brought awareness of the unnecessary trauma caused to cancer sufferers who were forced to travel to Townsville or Brisbane for treatment and thereby be away from the support of family and friends during their greatest time of need. As a result of the public meeting, Couch was formed, steered by Charles and Pip Woodward, essentially to bring radiation oncology services to Cairns. To put a long story short, the public response and the show of solidarity by FNQ residents was unprecedented. It's easily the most rewarding charitable cause I've ever been involved with, simply because of people's willingness to give. Because of Couch, in October 2007, the federal government committed $8.3 million to the cause, which was identified by a person in this room. In January 2009, Queensland State Government matched the commitment, and Queensland Health announced a cancer care unit and radiation oncology would be provided to Cairns. What you see now as Block E of the Cairns Hospital, is a direct result of Couch. Excuse me. After much arm twisting and lobbying in the corridors of both federal and state governments, an amount of approximately $20 million eventuated in the state-of-art Liz Plummer Cancer Care Centre, welcoming its first patient on the 27th of June 2011. It marked the end of a phase 1 for Couch, 5 years of unrelenting pressure on government instrumentalities to provide much-needed health facilities to Cairns. It meant that over 600 patients annually who once had to travel to Townsville and beyond were now able to receive treatment and care locally with the support of loved ones. And Jean and her family know what that's all about. Apart from the obvious Liz Plummer Cancer Care Centre, our successes to date are approximately $1 million in public donations, bequeaths and fundraising received, approximately $500,000 of in-kind support, we purchased an endobronchial ultrasound or EBUS machine valued at $300,000 for the Cairns Hospital in conjunction with the Far North Queensland Hospital Foundation. We purchased 2 lymphatic mapping nodes, or probes, valued at $20,000 for the Cairns Hospital. Purchased a shuttle bus for the Liz Plummer Cancer Care Centre valued at $25,000, and I might add, it was an ex-Avis vehicle organised by Wayne Lapthorne. All above the radar, George. Purchased a bioimpedance spectroscopy device and 2 laser therapy units valued at $23,000. Purchased 5 chemotherapy chairs for the Liz Plummer Cancer Care Centre valued at $500,000. Couch's focus now is cancer post-treatment to provide Cairns with a world-class, broader concept of wellness and a more holistic approach to cancer care, a cancer health and wellness centre, a place for complete physical, mental and social well-being. The main objective is to build a purpose-designed cancer health and wellness centre for sufferers and their carers. The centre will provide therapies to benefit the recovery of mind, body and soul. In due course, it will include accommodation for out-of-towners in the tableland and the Cape, and will be self-funding with retail ancillary services such as pharmacy and on-site doctors' practices. The centre, beginning construction in 2015, is to be built on a 2.2 hectare parcel of land donated by the Woodward family, valued at $1.5 million. It's located at 100 to 114 Reservoir Road. The building will be of modern open plan, set amongst an existing tranquil palm forest and landscaped amongst and around a natural spring which flows through the land, so as to enhance the ambience and the healing aspect of the facility. In memory of a great Cairns citizen and friend, one of the buildings at the centre will be named the Wayne Lapthorne Pavilion, and a dedicated bank. dedicated bank accounts been established for that purpose. Folks, I hope this update's been of some worthy information to you, and welcome your questions as I share fellowship with you on the floor. Cancer in its many forms is an insidious and indiscriminate disease which has touched everyone either directly or indirectly. Locals helping locals affected by cancer. All monies are kept local, and 100% goes to the cause here in Cairns. All administration and service is voluntary. Envelopes for the donations and buckets are at the front door, and we'd welcome whatever you can offer to assist donations. Donations of over $2 are tax deductible. Folks, I thank you for your time and sorry for getting emotional. Let's all remember fondly a mountain of a man, Wayne Lapthorne.
Thank you, Bob. Just before we have the reflection, ladies and gentlemen, I would ask Jean just up to the podium again, please. We do have a special presentation. Ken Chappell, if you'd like to step out and come to the microphone and tell everyone what you'd like to do. Ken?
Jean, everyone here today knows that Wayne was a remarkable man. He's an amazing Rotarian. He's a man I'll never forget, and he's just one of a kind. And we've made this small indication of our that's all right. It actually reads, forever in our memories from all your fellow Rotarians. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure Wayne would have been, again, amazed. What I do want to say, and yes, cancer touches everyone. If you're working too hard, if you're stressed, if you don't have a life at home, look in the mirror and say, is it worth it? Because if it's not, then change, make a choice, do something different. Because stress does amazing things. And something I learned from our doctor just a few days ago was that one of the common threads in people Wayne's age who get this type of cancer is stress. So he may have been an amazing man on lots of committees, but it also may have been his downfall. So please take care and don't stress. Find another outlet. Thank you.
May I ask to the podium our celebrant Elaine Charlton for our reflection, and following the reflection we will definitely have refreshments.
We all know that the value and meaning of life consist in living it, and of course living it well. People who have been a strength and inspiration to others and have worked for future generations, deriving fulfilment and satisfaction from so doing, these are the people who create the value and meaning in life. From all we've heard today, there can be no doubt that Wayne was such a person. I'd like you all now to take a moment to reflect on the wonderful things that Wayne has done and has been for you personally.
Thank you, Elaine. It's time for refreshments. I think we've earned them. Thank you to all our speakers this afternoon. And on saying that, Jean and the family would like you to stay a little bit longer. Get together, talk, remember, look at the photos. And we're here till 4:30, I think, Stephen, aren't we? We'll have to clear pretty quick because bingo will follow. And if Ron Livingston and Cam Charlton would like to stay for bingo, they're more than welcome to. And I think that's about it from me. On that note, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please stay around. You can see refreshments are being brought out now. Thank you very much.